Tantor Audio presents The Spellsong War by L.E. Modesitt, Jr. Narrated by Amy Landon. Overture 1. Way Nordway. The heavy gong sounds, and the two women in the uniform of the council turn and open the lacquered double doors, each bearing the ancient symbol of the Council of Way. Each wears twin black lacquered scabbards at her hips, and the scabbards contain the infamous short swords of the Norden Guard. Ashtar moistens her lips and steps through the doors, then down the black carpet toward the dais. The black lacquered council table is also ancient, and behind it sit 7 figures. The woman in the center wears a silver and black seal on a heavy silver chain. Her dark eyes hold Ashtar as the spy mistress walks down the dark green carpet toward the space below the dais holding the table. The Mistworld sorceress now holds Defalk. The council has read your report and would like to inquire further. Yes, Ancient One. Ashtar bows. Please summarize the major events that led to the current state of affairs, briefly. A travel sorceress and a player summoned the Lady Anna from the Mistworlds. Both are dead now. The sorcerer Brill spirited her away and tutored her in the ways of both Darksong and Clearsong. The Dark Ones tried to kill her, and failed. She supported Lord Bargham against the Ebrons at the Sand Pass. Bargham and Brill were killed and she collapsed, but not before she destroyed 2/3 of the invaders. She somehow found her way south and recovered in Sinope, in the lands of Lord Riding. Lord Balaam of Nezaria then marched into Defalk and took Falkor, but not before Lord Jex rescued the heir, his grandson Lord Jimbob. Lord Balaam offered his support to the sorceress, and she accepted it and went to Falkor. The Dark Ones gathered another army and marched toward Falkor. The sorceress used water magic and song to destroy the entire Ebron army and all the Dark Singers in Defalk. The Evolt responded by flooding the Fall and destroying half of Falkor. Lord Balaam attempted to remove the Lady Anna, and she used her sorcery to kill him and his consort and enlist the support of many of the Nezarean troops in Falkor. Then she proclaimed a regency for young Jimbob. Shortly, almost at the dawn of winter, she marched a small force through the Ostfells and used her sorcery to destroy the Evolt, the city of Volt, and most of Sinek. She almost died, but the lords of Defalk, especially Lord Jex, rallied behind her. So did the people. She has a reputation for being good and fair, and vindictively just. Ashtar bows once more. The rains now fall on Defalk, do they not? Asks the red-haired woman to the left of the council leader. Yes. The sorceress removed the chains on the clouds when she destroyed the Evolt. Will the sorceress attempt to rule directly and put young Jimbob out of the way? Asks the dark-haired council leader. That does not appear likely. She can have no children and has, in effect, adopted the boy. And Lord Jex has not objected. He publicly supports the sorceress, as do the Lords Burfells, Nelmore, Riding, Gayansor, Clethner, and the Lady Gatrun and the Rider of Hyneen. There are doubtless others, and none of the 33 have raised voice or hand against her. With her powers, I doubt any of sound mind would do so, suggests the council leader. Are there any whispers of discontent? Almost none that we have been able to track. She holds but one hostage, and that is Wendella, the consort of Lord Denser of Stromwer. Denser is rumored to be less than happy. No others? None that we know or can scry. What of Ibra? The land has been flattened, mostly by the floods she unleashed down the river Elha, and Volt lies buried under the fire peak the Ebrons are calling Zauberin Fjord. Hadron has claimed the ruins of Sinek. He is one of the sons of an ancient lord, and several pretenders are struggling over Alawa. A lord named Bertman is raising armsmen in Dolov. He wishes to be lord of all Ibra, Ashtar waits. We have received a scroll from the Leitfjord. He protests our interference in Defalk. He also informs us that young Rabin is the Lord of Nazaria and under his protection and regency. What beyond that do you know? The dark-haired council leader smiles faintly. He has dispatched 50 score lancers to Nazaria. They were delayed by the snows in the Mitt Pass, but traveled the south road through the great western forest. Spy mistress of Nordway, is it fair to say that a year ago we faced possible threats from the Prophet of Music and the Dark Ones, and both have been destroyed? Yes, Leader Tybra. Is it also fair to say that you chose not to remove the soprano sorceress? Asks Tybra. I waited to see whether the Dark Ones and the Prophet were successful in their attempts. The Dark Ones failed in 4 attempts. The Prophet and his consort failed as well. We have been able to trace at least 2 attempts by Nazaria. Ashtar inclines her head. I thought it best not to turn the sorceress's wrath against Nordway. So, now we have a strong and united Defalk on our southern borders, and this is your doing. We have a united Defalk, ruled by a woman for the first time in recorded history, and a Defalk that will take a decade or longer to recover from the drought and depredations of the Dark Ones and the Nazareans. That is what you say. For now, we shall see. You may go, but do not hesitate to inform the council should this sorceress take any action that could possibly affect Nordway. Yes, Leader Tybra. Ashtar bows a last time, then turns. She does not wipe the dampness from her forehead. 2. Through the scarcely cracked high window behind her, Anna could hear the half-frozen rain clattering on the stones of the Leitberg. The entire keep felt damp, and even the small fire in her receiving room and de facto office wasn't enough to remove the dampness. She needed the slight draft from the window to keep from being suffocated from the fireplace, which drew poorly with small fires. Sorceress, regent of Defalk, protector of the air, not to mention being Lady of Loiseau, and she had to worry about firewood. She hadn't thought about firewood being a problem, but nearly a decade of drought had wrought enormous damages on the once wide forests of Defalk. Then, there was so much she'd never thought she'd have to consider. She'd been trained to be a professional opera singer, and fallen back on university teaching with demands of Avery's career. Later, when he'd left her and the children for his slim, blonde young thing, the teaching and several additional part-time jobs had become necessities. Anna laughed softly to herself. She was slimmer and younger-looking than Paulina now, and Avery, the self-styled Antonio, king of the Comprimarios, would never know. Neither would Mario and Elisabetta. Irenia. Anna's eyes misted. Her oldest daughter's death had been the catalyst that had left Anna open to poor Jenny's and Daffod's Spellsong, that had brought her to Leitwar, and all the rest had followed, like dominoes falling until she had become regent of a ravaged land. And she'd done little enough, with the press of the regency, with the lands bestowed on her, Loiseau, because Brill had left no heirs. She'd granted the present tenants the right to remain, but she needed to do something about a more permanent arrangement. That meant traveling to Mencha, and she didn't have 10 days to spare, not counting the time she'd need at Loiseau. Anna sighed. She stood, pushed back the chair from the work table, and moved toward the center of the room, her eyes shifting toward the high-backed gilt chair on the dais, the chair she avoided using whenever possible. After a moment she turned, stepped away from the side of the dais, and walked to the single window at the back of the receiving room, where the base of the sill was nearly chest-high. Once again, the dimness reminded her that she'd planned to rearrange the Leitberg. Perhaps put the receiving/conference area somewhere with more ventilation and light. She sighed. Another item low on her long, long list. Before long, she would need to use some of that sorcery to replace the bridge over the Falsh, one of the casualties of the war with Ibra, when the late Evolt had melted all the snow off the northern Ostfells and sent a flood careening down the Fall River and into the Falsh with enough force to rip out all the bridges and denude the banks for 250 decks. Roughly 150 Earth miles, she translated mentally, rubbing her forehead. She still had trouble thinking in rods, furls, decks, and leagues. There weren't any feet, and yards were still basically yards, and the units above were decimal-based, but she'd never been that good in mental arithmetic.
"Lady Anna?"
Guillaume knocked on the heavy door even as he peered inside.
"Councillor Menares to see you, and your mid-afternoon repast."
The young guard set the platter on the only open space on the table before straightening. "Send him in." She headed from the window back to the work table. The heavy-set and grey Menares stopped short of Anna and the table and bowed, extending the scroll.
"This arrived by messenger, Lady Anna."
"From whom?"
"Lord Arkad of Chior, I believe."
Anna looked at the plate heaped with bread and cheese before her on the round oak table that served as a work-time eating place, desk and conference table, then at the sealed scroll. She didn't want to eat any more, and she certainly didn't want to read the latest scroll from Lord Arkad, or his scribe. But she had to eat, because of the energy demands of sorcery, or she'd literally wither away into anorexia or the local equivalent. She also had to read the scroll because Arkad was one of the 33 lords of Defalk. From what she recalled, he was also one of the handful who still hadn't paid his Leitgeld to the Regency. Nearly a season past the end of harvest, when it was due. "Sit down, Menares." She took the scroll, then motioned to the chair across from the one where she sat. After a long look at the platter, she took a swallow of water and a mouthful of bread and cheese, and a second, forcing herself to eat, still fighting a lifetime habit that equated any healthy amount of eating with gluttony. Menares shifted his weight on the chair, but said nothing. Anna broke the seal and began to read to herself.
"Arkad has always supported the rightful rulers of Defalk, and certainly recognizes the legitimacy of the late and great Lord Bargem and of his son Jim Bob. As we have expressed earlier, while Lord Jex and other respected lords of Defalk have reluctantly endorsed the expediency of a prolonged regency, as did we, our initial concerns about the continuity of such an arrangement remain, especially about the use of the Leitgeld. As a loyal lord, we are deeply concerned that such funds, which have been sweated from the very soil, be employed in support of Defalk's long and glorious tradition. We ask your assurance and your pledge as regent that such funds be used as traditionally required. We look forward to your response and to your continued efforts on behalf of Lord Jim Bob."
Arkad hadn't signed the missive, but concluded with a seal mark and his name printed beside it. Anna snorted. Lord Arkad of Chior was getting to be an even bigger pain, with his missives and not-so-subtle hints that a male regency or ruler was to be preferred and trusted, not to mention his use of the royal we. She had to put an end to such garbage, preferably without putting an end to the writer. She couldn't ensorcel or flame every chauvinistic lord in Defalk, not and have much of a kingdom left for Jim Bob to inherit. She sighed. "Lord Jex, Lady Anna," announced Skent, the dark-haired page from the door. "You may go, Menares. Lord Arkad has found another excuse to delay paying his Leitgeld. You might think of the possible actions open to a disgusted regent." The white-haired counselor rose and bowed.
"As you wish, Lady Anna."
"Have Lord Jex come in?" Anna took another mouthful of bread and cheese, then stood.
"Lady Anna."
Jex inclined his head. Jex still reminded her of a young-faced and white-haired Robert Mitchum with the smile of a Sean Connery. despite his white hair and a muscular frame somewhat stockier than the movie stars he resembled. His hazel eyes were clear and intelligent. Although he looked older than Anna, she suspected that in actual years, the long-widowed lord was probably even younger than she was. Certainly the clean-shaven Jex remained the most attractive man she'd met in the year she'd been in Defalk. He was also one of the few lords respected near universally by both his peers and the armsmen and workers of Defalk. Then, part of that was the sorry state of Defalk. Jex was widely respected by the common people, not only for his fairness and honesty, but also for not taking his pleasure with every comely young maid on his lands, and instead providing them with a modest dowry. What a place, where women were usually chattels. Careful, Anna reminded herself. It hasn't been that long since all of Earth was that way, and a lot of it still is. Please sit down. I need to eat, again. After another sip of water previously order-spelled and a mouthful of bread and cheese, she added, "You had something to say. Please, go ahead." Jex eased into the chair across the table from Anna. "Lord Burfell sent me a message." "Yes?" Anna wanted to scream. Burfell's had supported her, but he much preferred to work through Jex, or any man. "What is his difficulty?"
"Besides his reluctant acceptance of the present situation,"
Jex offered a wry smile.
"He noted that the return of the rains offers the first opportunity in many years for the planting of all the fields. He also noted that seed grain is scarce."
Anna nodded, waiting for the shoe or boot to fall.
"The only source of such seed grain is the Rannowan factors in Sudway or Ranwa, and they are hesitant to extend credit to Defalcan lords, especially when the Regency itself has not completed repaying those funds borrowed by the former lord."
"And I suppose Lord Burfell's lacks sufficient golds to purchase the seed outright?"
"He did not write of that, but as you know, the past years have been hard. Were I in his situation, even I would be pressed."
"Except you're more prudent than most and saved the necessary seed grain?" asked Anna, glancing toward the closed door to the receiving room.
"It was not easy, but Herstatt and Dithia also insisted."
Jex grinned.
"Herstatt has been my Saulmeister for many years, and when they insist, a lord should listen."
"That's why you let me borrow Dithia to get the Leetstadt and Leetberg accounts in order?"
"I do not feel quite so outnumbered now. At home. Here."
As he smiled, Jex's eyes went to the closed door of the receiving room, almost as though he were nervous about being alone with the regent. Nervous? Why was every man in Defalk nervous to be around her? When she had appeared on Erde, and especially after Brill's death spell had turned her permanently young-looking, they'd all been leering, except Jex, but he'd been interested, just more restrained. Now, once she'd demonstrated some power and ability to rule, the leering and interest had vanished. Of course, using spells to burn up a dozen or so assassins and plotters didn't exactly help your sex appeal. "I take it that this seed grain would be a problem for most lords in Defalk?" she finally asked, ignoring Jex's glance past her.
"Many," admitted Jex, "especially those in the south. Rannowick is close, and they have relied on the grain dealers there for generations."
"How can I repay the Rannowans when I can't even get the lords of Defalk to pay Leetgeld?" She extended the scroll from Arkad to the white-haired lord. "Please read this." Jex read slowly, then looked at Anna. "What am I supposed to do with this Arkad of Chior? Is it because he has no money?"
"That I would doubt. His lands, many of them, hold the bottom land between the Falsh and the Sinor. They are among the richest in Defalk, and there is water."
Another penny-pinching, chauvinistic, self-centered prig. Or a troublemaker. Was he like this before, or is he really upset about a female regent?
"He was a problem to Bargem, I believe."
"He's getting to be more of a problem to me, and that's not going to help Jim Bob any."
If it should come to that, Jim Bob will have fewer problems. Arkad's sons died without issue, and he had no daughters, only a niece.
So the lands will revert to Jim Bob? Jex frowned.
No. Should Arkad die without issue, as is now the case, you or Jim Bob could bestow the lands to someone.
More supportive? Asked Anna. What about the niece, or her consort?
She might have a slight claim.
But the other 32 would welcome another man. Jex shrugged.
They will await your action.
This chauvinism. Can you ever make things better? In short, like everything else around here, it's my problem. Anna forced another wedge of cheese and some bread into her mouth and chewed slowly.
As I told you before,
Jex looked at her thoughtfully.
You have done the impossible, and your people will expect that and more. You are the destroyer of dissonance, the savior of the land, lady and sorceress, great regent of Defalk. They will not wait for the healing of time.
She nodded, then swallowed. She'd read something like that once. What had it been? The revolution of rising expectations, where the more a leader did, the more people expected. The problem of expectations. After another swallow of the water she'd order-spelled that morning, she added, "Let me call Dithya." She lifted the bell and rang it once. A dark-haired page opened the door and peered inside.
"Yes, Lady Anna?"
"Skent, would you see if Dithya's free?"
"Yes, lady."
As the door closed, Jex asked,
"What will you do with that one?"
"Educate him and marry him to the girl he loves."
"The Lady Kateryzna."
"Lord Gayansor could do worse," Anna said dryly, thinking about the crippled Lord of Sudway and his blonde daughter.
"He could indeed."
Jex laughed softly.
"That is why you are dangerous. You look for ways to forge people's dreams into what must be."
That's dangerous? It seemed more like common sense to Anna. "Pardon me, Lord Jex, would you like some cheese or bread?"
"No, thank you, lady. Not even a young armsman could eat as you must. But do not mind an old war-horse."
Anna wanted to kick him under the table for the slight tone of self-pity. Then, he probably did think of himself that way. Why did girls always think that young men were so appealing? Then, why did so many men think shallow, pretty girls were so appealing? Like Avery had.
"Lady."
Anna smoothed her face. "Sorry, old memories." Jex accepted her explanation with a nod. Shortly, the dark-haired and graying Dithya appeared. "Lady Anna." "Please sit." Dithya took the seat at the table to Anna's right and to the left of her former lord. Anna waited until Skent closed the door to the receiving room before beginning. "I understand that, unless we further soothe the Ranowans by paying some or all of the debt incurred by Lord Bargem, a number of our lords may find it difficult to buy seed grain." Dithya frowned momentarily. "And most of those are in the south." Lord, how she hated the politics. Of course they were in the south, and they could threaten to pledge fealty to the matriarchy or even Dumar, she supposed, on the grounds that the Regency was not meeting its obligations to them. "Where do we stand?" "I did not bring the accounts." "Just in rough terms." "We have almost 5,000 golds in the treasury. We will need to spend close to 8 before harvest. We still have not received the leet geld from 8 lords. That would be about 5,000 golds more." "The 8 we'll have to spend. Does that include what we owe to the Ranowans?" "No, Lady Anna." Anna winced. Another 1,500 golds she or the Leetstat didn't have. "All right, we'll have to make arrangements to send another 500 golds. But we'll send a message which says that we expect our lords and people to receive normal commercial terms, especially as regards seed grain." She looked at Jex. "Will that help?"
Were Lord Bargem still lord? I would say not. The older-looking lord shrugged. With this, you will have made 2 payments and defeated the Ebrons. I would think it would be in the interests of the women of Ranwick to accede to your request.
Let's hope so. Anna turned back to the de facto accountant. Can you make the arrangements and have a scroll drafted for me to sign? Have Minares work on the wording. I know, Anna said tiredly, realizing that Minares would resent the implication that he was taking orders from Dithya. Tell Minares that it is my request and not yours, and that if he has any questions to come to me. Thank you, lady. And Dithya, could you write out a summary, a shortened version of the lead stat accounts, so that I can have it to refer to? Make sure you list all the lords who are short on their lead geld. All of them. Dithya nodded. That's after you take care of the payment to the Rannoan Exchange, or whatever it is. When the door closed again, Anna turned back to Jex. What do you hear about Ibra?
I am not a sorcerer,
he pointed out with a smile. Sorceresses have their limits, too, she answered. According to what I've called up on the glass, the place remains a mess. There's nothing happening in Volt, and there won't be for years. Someone is rebuilding parts of Sinek, and most of the wreckage in Alawa has been cleared away. I can't tell who's in charge from the glass.
The whispers from the peddlers are that Hadron holds Sinek. He is the youngest son of Jekyll, who was the last lord of Sinek before the Dark Monks seized Ibra.
Jex looked at the empty goblet before him. Wine or water? Anna asked.
Wine, please.
The red wine she poured was slightly better than high-grade vinegar. As she had discovered from experience, trying to improve things like food and wine involved darksong, and was chancy at best. Then, any spell that affected something that was living or had once been living was darksong, and invited trouble. Jex took a hefty swallow.
The Leetfjord of Mansour has dispatched a force of lancers, and they are riding to Assaria.
To support Rabin? She paused. Or an advance force for an attack on us?
Young Rabin still can claim the loyalty of many who supported his sire, and who feel he is the legitimate prophet of music.
Jex set his goblet down gently.
I do not think the Leetfjord will attack Defalk until matters in Nezaria become more clear.
You mean until the mighty Leetfjord Constant has Rabin firmly under his thumb? Jex laughed softly.
One forgets, for a time. You have such strange phrases, Lady Anna.
Thank you. Anna didn't point out that, for her, Defalk often had very strange turns of phrase, with a language that was far more Teutonic in origin and only sounded like English at times.
My pleasure, lady.
Jex rose.
By your leave, I had arranged for Jimbob to receive blade instruction from Hymar.
You're a better blade, Anna said. That got a wintry smile.
True, but children oft receive instruction poorly from parents and grandparents.
Have fun watching, and don't wince too much. Anna returned the smile. She knew Jex's frustration all too well. None of her children had wanted her as a voice teacher. Still, it was hard to see the handsome Jex, white hair or not, as the grandparent of a boy as old as Jimbob. After a time, Anna looked up. She sat alone in the receiving room, alone if she didn't count the guards outside the door or the pages. Skent was there now. Then, weren't rulers always alone? She stripped off the purple regent's sash, laid it across the gilt chair on the dais, and walked to the door. Blaz and Guillaume followed her up the stairs and down the corridor to the door to Lady Essen's rooms, the sharp-voiced but observant consort of the late Lord Donjim, the Lord of Defalk before Bargem. Anna rapped on the door. Sinandra edged the door open. "Oh, Lady Anna, please do come in." Anna had not so much as stepped inside when Lady Essen spoke.
"Sinandra, you may take a walk or otherwise amuse yourself."
"Yes, Lady Essen." Sinandra bowed to Anna and added in a low voice,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?